Hi, I'm Gary Siegel, certified personal trainer and owner of 2 personal training gyms in the Baltimore, Washington corridor. I know you're looking at me and going, boy, he's in shape. What does he know about obesity and specifically childhood obesity? But believe it or not, as a child, I was obese. I was obese till I was almost 16 years old. I've now been in great shape working out with weights and cardiovascular training for 35 years. This has been a passion of mine. I never want to be obese again. And the presentation you're about to see next is about eradicating childhood obesity. Let's take it out of the equation. Let's work together and never talk about it again. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gary Siegel. I'm the owner and the head certified personal trainer for Fitness Matters Gym. We have 2 locations in Bowie and Crofton, Maryland, and we specialize in one-on-one training, but we're also very, very passionate about working with today's youth, and today's presentation happens to be about childhood obesity. We have had in the past 20 years, which is how long we've been around, a number of teenagers and younger that are either obese or morbidly obese, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we work with them. We work conjointly with them on nutrition and fitness. We try to teach them and their parents good eating and exercise habits, and we've dealt with a lot of situations where the kids are already obese or morbidly obese. They're already experiencing adult-type symptoms of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. And I'm here today to share with you how we can work together to eradicate this situation in America. First, we're going to talk about some of the things that go along with childhood obesity. The prevalence of obesity among adults aged 12 to 19 has increased 5 to 18% in the last 5 years. And the numbers are astounding and astonishing, and this could be the first generation of kids that does not live as long as their parents. That's a very, very sad comment on our society. We have worked with kids now that are age 12 and weigh over 300 pounds. They're already diabetics, they're already dealing with high blood pressure, and they're already dealing with a lot of adult issues that they should not be dealing with as young kids. This chart shows you how much childhood obesity has changed in the past 30 years, and this is just focusing on kids age 2 to 19, but the prevalence of obesity with children age 6 to 11, again, is reiterating how much it's increased in the last 4 to 5 years. It is just appalling that we are allowing our kids to eat poorly and not exercise. This is just another graphic of what's happening to our youth. A lot of us were born and were, preteen or teens in 1970, and we might have been considered overweight at that time. But now if we look at the preteen teen in 2009, you see that they're not only overweight, they're also morbidly obese. Obesity. What is obesity, guys? That's probably the first thing we should answer. And basically, it's the result of a caloric imbalance. What does that mean? It means that we're taking in more calories that we need, and we're not expending enough calories to lose weight or to maintain a healthy body weight. What's causing this is not only lack of exercise, but it's also the types of foods that these kids are eating. So many parents are not coming home and cooking meals. They're coming home with bags in their hands from McDonald's, Burger King, and fast food restaurants that are enticing these kids to eat poorly with high caloric foods. This next slide talks about cause, and then we'll talk about effect right after that. And generally, kids and adolescents, children and adolescents are eating more food either away from home or they're eating fast food that are being brought in the home. These foods are loaded with sugars and additives that are not healthy for these kids. And they're also snacking more and more on unhealthy foods when they're away from home. Convenience. We are a high-pressured, fast-moving society, and everybody is worried about convenience, time constraints. Parents are working later, they're more stressed out. So what are they doing? They're hitting the fast food restaurants on the way home, or they're picking up the kids and running out to the fast food restaurants, and the kids are eating poorly, and the parents are doing it out of love, but also out of the fact that they're either too tired or their time constraints are not allowing them to prepare the healthy meals that our parents cooked for us. The effect, we just stated the cause. Today's youth, they're obese, and they're more likely to have risk factors like cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. These are diseases that typically in the past were only associated with people over the age of 50, sometimes over the age of 60. Now we're talking about nurses in schools administering insulin shots. We're talking about kids going to the nurse to take their high blood pressure medication. And we're talking about kids not being able to participate in activities in gym class because they have cardiovascular issues. Okay. Another effect that we want to talk about with kids and obesity and morbidly obese children, they're at greater risk for bone and joint problems. Kids are already experiencing aches and pains that, again, would typically be associated with a 60-plus-year-old, but because they're carrying around all this extra weight, they're putting a lot of added pressure on their joints, and their bodies are not designed to handle it. Sleep apnea. When have we ever talked about sleep apnea with anybody under the age of 50? And now it's become one of the most prevalent issues in America for not only adults but kids. And a great cause, or a large cause, of sleep apnea is obesity, because it makes it much more difficult for these larger people to breathe. And then the social and psychological problems that these kids are encountering, the stigmatism of being overweight. Being an overweight kid myself, I knew what it was like for kids to gawk at you and make fun of you, but that's not only happening now, it's happening where they're being bullied. We see this in the news all the time. And so these kids under the age of even 12 are dealing with self-esteem issues that are starting to cause them to think about horrible things like committing suicide or not wanting to live anymore. We've dealt with that a couple of times in our gym with teenage girls that had extremely low self-esteem. Their parents didn't necessarily recognize the problem, and it's a huge problem in society right now. Another effect, obese youth are becoming so overweight that they are now at risk for the most dangerous adult disease, and we've touched on this, but diabetes. Diabetes is the most prevalent, fastest growing disease in America right now, and at first we were looking at it just as an adult disease, especially adults over the age of 50 that were starting to gain too much weight. But now we're finding that kids in middle school and high school are developing type 2 diabetes, and they're having to take the medicines associated with it. They have to control their diets, and they're not doing it. They're not taking it serious. They're 12-year-olds. They can't possibly have the mindset of an adult that realizes that if they don't do the right things, they're putting their life in jeopardy. It's hard enough for adults to deal with these issues, and we're asking for 12 and 13-year-olds to face up to these things and make a difference in their life.